Anybody see my brother? Does anybody know? I heard the moon is shining after a fight in love and soul. Someone said that they shot him in his heart, and he died before the emperor. Hi, I'm Harold Bell, and this is the Legends of Inside Sports and the Way We Were. The sounds you just heard are the sounds of harmony. The CD, Once More with Feelings. My homeboys, Junebug, Larry, Mike, James, and George. This is a great CD, guys. I hope you take it to the next level, because that is where it deserves to be, man. It really does. Let's take a look at what's happening in sports. I don't know if you guys remember this saying. It was heard in 1995 in the movie Apollo 13. And it says, Houston, we have a problem. Those words were uttered by actor Tom Hanks as he portrayed the mission commander, Jim Lovell, when they had an explosion on board. He was reporting back to NASA on Earth. Well, that same phrase can be used today in the world of sports, only this time by President Donald Trump to the NFL and ESPN after quarterback Colin Kaepernick refused to stand for the national anthem to protest the killing of unarmed men of color by cops all around the country. His protest had nothing to do with disrespecting the flag or the military, which has now become a smokescreen for President Trump and his partner, Cowboy owner Jerry Jones. Instead of support from his black teammates and other NFL players who make up 70% of the league population, his support unexpectedly came from a female sports talk show host, Jemele Hill. Now, she makes up 1% of the female talk show hosts on ESPN television. You know, it has been often said that sports and politics don't mix. That theory was proved wrong in 1970. Colin Kaepernick followed the lead of sprinters John Carlos and Tommy Smith as they raised their black-gloved fists on the podium to protest racism in America at the 1968 Olympic Games in Mexico City. Now, I must take the responsibility for the actions of Jemele Hill. The seeds for her actions were planted in Washington, D.C., in the nation's capital, the home of the president and all that is political in America. The Inside Sports Talk radio format made its debut on WOOK Radio AM in 1970. Sports talk radio and television has never been the same. Inside Sports was outside the lines long before ESPN and was real sports long before HBO and Brian Gumbel. In fact, it was out of Compton before NWA. We didn't have to go underground with Inside Sports. We operated above ground. See, pre-Inside Sports, topics like racism on and off the field of play, message music and media roundtables, agents ripping off black athletes were really outside the lines. Never heard. Evidently, Washington Redskins running back Clinton Portis never got the memo. When he retired in 2012, he discovered his agents had ripped him off to the tune of $43 million. He said he wanted to kill them. Too late, Clinton. The next time you see NBA Hall of Fame player Adrian Dantley, ask him how he found out about his agent David Falk had ripped him off for several $1 million. Inside Sports should be his response. Message music Media roundtables, pro athletes reaching back into the community. This was unheard of. The immediate benefactors of my nonprofit organization, Kids in Trouble and Inside Sports, before their 15 minutes of fame, reads like a who's who in radio and television. Names like Michael Wilbon, ESPN, John Thompson, ESPN. And when you see Big John, ask him who gave him his first radio show to promote Georgetown basketball when he could not win a game. And then there's Sugar Ray Leonard, ESPN. Ask him when he didn't have two pennies to rub together, who did he turn to be his mentor? And man, please don't let me forget Kathy Hughes, owner of Radio One. Ask her when she was struggling as a receptionist at WHUR Radio, whom did she ask to be a big brother to her little Alfred? The list goes on and on to include David Aldridge, TNT, Kevin Blackstone, ESPN, Bill Rhoden, the New York Times, Larry Fitzgerald Sr., Minnesota spokesman, newspaper, Adrian Branch, ESPN, Butch McAdams, Radio One, Glenn Harris, WHUR Radio, and the list, like I said, goes on and on. And I'm so proud, and I take with great pride to see TNT's David Aldridge using his name and sports media platform to speak out on issues that will help to enhance the growth of our communities and may help save some child's life. You never know. To Dave's credit, this is not the first time he has reached back. ESPN's Michael Wilbon has also finally used his partner interruption platform on ESPN in Bully Pulpit to call NFL players slaves. I had to do a double take because he has been sitting on the fence and talking out of both sides of his mouth for so long. One of his colleagues on the Washington Post, John Feinstein, said Wilbon is the biggest ass kisser in sports media. Now that's rather harsh, but close to the truth. Michael Wilbon disappointed me because he became a big liar. When Michael first joined the Washington Post in 1980, I was already a sports talk show icon. I took him under my wing and protected him from the BS he would encounter in sports media. Ditto for Doug Williams before he started to smell himself. The list goes on, and most have forgotten, including Wilbon. He recently told a writer that was doing a story on the 1984 Georgetown basketball team and John Thompson that John was his mentor, among other lies. I told a writer to call Wilbon and double check his statement that he has spoken with me. You know, how soon we forget. Wilbon is also forgetting that he has a legacy to protect. He has a 10-year-old son who's going to ask him one day, Daddy, why did your friends John Feinstein and Harold Bell say all those mean things about you? There's a possibility he has already asked them, and that may be the reason that Michael had to change his tune on the NFL. Plus, he didn't do himself any favors by having Feinstein and Tony Kornheiser two of his closest confidants. These are two guys to thank God they were not born black in Harold Bell. They have no talent whatsoever. These two are the best examples of white privilege. In the meantime, CBS NFL studio host James Brown is sitting on a hot seat every week while he tries to address the racism issue and try to maintain a balance to what is fake news and real news as it relates to racism in pro sports. So far, so good. His new challenge? He will now have to address the issue with his homeboy, native Washingtonian NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, who seems to be moving to join the team of President Trump and Cowboy owner Jerry Jones on the issue on whether to stand, kneel, or sit during the national anthem. Man, I'm thinking this whole NFL flag and whether to sit or stand is going to end bad. If they try to make these football players stand for the national anthem, they're going to have big trouble. So stay tuned. Just recently, my friend, NBA Hall of Famer, Connie Hawkins died. Connie was one of the greatest pro basketball players to ever lace up a pair of tennis shoes. And they put him in a trick. He was not just a great basketball player, he was a great human being. Before my mentor and friend, NBA godfather Red Auerbach, died in 2006, he collaborated with me to co-host a show titled Celebrity Sports Calls. Our call-in guests were Connie, Sam Jones, and Big House Games. I was looking through my archives for the cassette interview that I did with them when I found this interview with guess who? James Brown. Man, this interview must have been over 20 years ago. Let's take a listen. Give me a chance to set this up and listen to it, okay? Okay, let's see what we got here.
Want to hear a bit more about local sports history? Guess what? We've got a guy who knows all about it, Mr. Harold Bell, well-known local sportscaster. He's going to bring it to us in a second.
Sports Radio 570 WTEF.
All right, it really gives me an awful lot of pleasure to welcome to the program Harold Bell. As a matter of fact, I had mentioned, I guess it might have been about a month ago, because Harold and I were teasing about this, and I shared it with the listening audience last week, when I was asking, gosh, I'm trying to catch up with Harold Bell. And Harold is the ubiquitous Harold Bell all around Washington, D.C., indeed. So I get the word out, and I understand that some folks track you down at Faces and said, man, do you know JB's trying to catch you? And Harold said, JB has my number. I'm calling you at a previous job to track you down.
That's right. Well, yeah, JB, of course, I heard it a half a dozen times. I went through Eastern High School, and one of the security guards there said, hey, man, JB trying to catch up with you. And then I heard it, fella stopped me on the street out on Benny Road. JB trying to catch up with you. And then I ran into Billy Brown up at Faces a few weeks ago, and he called me and said, man, you called James Brown yet?
Well, it is good to know that the word got out. And Harold, how are you doing?
I'm fine. Man, I want to thank you, man, because this is an honor. I find this a very humbling experience to be on the same airways with you, man. You've done a fantastic job, and I want to congratulate you on your success, man. And hey, man, you're known worldwide.
Well, Harold, and you honestly know that I give an awful lot of thanks to the man upstairs for everything that has been happening. And as importantly, Harold, also guys like yourself and Glenn Harris, Petey Green, God rest his soul, you guys helped to lay the foundation way back when, so I took an awful lot of notes. And as a matter of fact, speaking of that, it's interesting, Harold, I had the opportunity now, the good fortune being blessed in traveling around the country covering sports, and the name Inside Sports, I recall 100 years ago when you had one of your programs, I don't know whether it was on WOL, and you helped us understand.
Okay.
Oh, okay, that's right. That was the original Inside Sports. How is it that name has now been copied and duplicated around the country?
Well, I asked my lawyer about it when I coined the phrase Inside Sports, and Derek Humphrey said, how long think you can copyright a title? So I never did bother about copyright.
Well, wait a minute now. Pat Riley has copyrighted the three-peat, right?
Yeah, well, I got some bad advice.
Okay.
Evidently, and about 4 or 5 years later, 6 years later, up comes the magazine Inside Sports.
I love it.
So my lawyer said, well, you can sue him. You probably get some nuisance change. So I never did bother about it, James. But everything now is inside and outside of sports, inside the NFL, inside Washington, and it was inside anything until I came up with Inside Sports in 1974.
Well, far too many accolades for me to call here, and I must also admit that I probably couldn't remember them all anyway, but I certainly remember you being acknowledged as a Washingtonian of the Year several years ago. An outstanding athlete, a great athlete. As a matter of fact, listening to Clarence Big House Gaines, who is certainly revered in coaching circles in the country. You played at Winston-Salem State 1959 through 1963, and you also helped me to understand. I know Willie Jones, formerly of Will Jones over at UDC, he's going to get on my case. Harold was a 3-sport star, and you claim that the Athletic Foundation was laid at spin guard, being coached by Dave Brown.
That's right.
Harold, now,
Dave Brown, who coached Elgin Bell, James.
Absolutely. So, but Harold, given your background in the Washington, D.C. area, having once been an outstanding athlete yourself, a multi-sport star, most folks know of your involvement as well in all kinds of good community causes. What drove you to be so involved in the various activities that you are involved with?
Well, it was people like Lieutenant Dave Brown at Spangard. James, none of us have arrived whatever status or whatever station that we had by ourselves. And and my grandmother, my aunts, and a lot of people helped me along the way. So the only way that I can pay those individuals back, like Coach Dave Brown, like my mom, like my grandmother, is to reach back and pull somebody else along with me. And people always ask me, how, why are you always doing something for somebody else? I have a selfish reason, James, because it makes me feel good. You know, I got young people that I worked out in the community. Some of them have gone on to college and become had made great contributions to their community. Others, of course, have strayed away and gone to jail, and others have turned out to be great family people. And when they see me now, it's always Mr. Bell. And that's how you know whether you reach these young people or not. That's respect, James. That's the kind of spiritual rewards that I have received from working with people. There are very few financial rewards in working with people, but the spiritual rewards are unlimited, James.
And that's certainly why you have been acknowledged with so many awards and by so many organizations. And of course, as I mentioned, the Washingtonian of the Year, one of the biggest awards that you certainly have received. 1:38 in the afternoon, James Brown here. We're talking with Harold Bell, Washington, D.C. fame, one of the greatest athletes ever produced in this city. And, you know I'm going to get a lot of calls because folks also were teasing me.
All right. That was James Brown, CBS NFL studio host. That must have been 20 years ago that interview. And I'm sorry I can't play all of it for you. I want to, but there's some other things I want to tackle, and I need to clarify certain things that were said in that interview. Number one, you heard me kept trying to call James Brown Jim. And I'm thinking about Jim Brown because both of them called JB. So I kept slipping up trying to call James Jim. And then the other thing is that Inside Sports, that tag, that was my wife's idea. We happened to be having dinner one evening. I happened to tell her, I said, look, I'm getting ready to have this new sports show on WOK Radio, and I don't have a title for the show. And right away, she said, Inside Sports. I said, oh, Hattie, how you come up with that right away? She said, because you get all the inside information from the athletes before anyone else. And that's how Inside Sports came about. And then, as I was talking, but he was asking me about, why I didn't copyright or trademark the name Inside Sports. And I said, well, I got bad advice from my lawyer. That's not true. My lawyer, Derek Humphreys, told me right from the very beginning, Harold, this is going to be a hot tag. I'm telling you, this is going to be a hot title, man. And but you know what? I never even thought about it anymore after he said about getting the copyright trademark. I was ego tripping that I was on the radio, so I didn't care about anything else. So I let it slide until 5 or 6 years later. I look up, and the Washington Post has hijacked my title with a guy by the name of John Walsh, who worked in the style section. Evidently, they funded him to go up to New York to start Inside Sports magazine. And the reason why this was so foul is because I had the Washington Post sports department as regular guests on my show all the time. I'm talking about George Solomon, the editor, Brian Rosen, Leonard Shapiro, Dave Dupree, Michael Wilbon, all them guys were coming on my show. And they pulled that off on me by taking my title. And today, Inside Sports, guess who has the copyrights to it? The Washington Post. But that's how they play the game. So you don't get stuck on stupid. I just kept on moving, and people all around the country understand that I am the original Inside Sports, just like James Brown said. He had never heard it before, but once he started moving around the country and seeing inside this and inside that, he thought about it. Now, I said 1974 that we started Inside Sports. It was 1970 at WOOK Radio. 1974 was so important to me because it was when Muhammad Ali fought Big George Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle in Zaire. And how that came all about, how I met Muhammad Ali was 1967 on Howard University campus, where he was up there just talking to some students. And I happened to show up and took him on a tour of the Georgia Avenue corridor all the way down to the Howard Theater. And I'll tell you, the rest is history, because Muhammad Ali and I became great friends, and I started frequenting his camp up in the Poconos Mountain. Then I was in Cleveland when he gave Don King his first break as the first black promoter against everybody's wishes. Muhammad Ali was in town to fight exhibition for Children's Hospital, and through his friend the great legend, R&B legend, Lloyd Price. Lloyd hooked Don King and Muhammad Ali up. That's how that relationship came about, because of Lloyd Price. But against everybody's wishes, they told Muhammad Ali, please leave him alone. And Muhammad Ali did come to regret that, because not only did Don King steal money from almost every fighter, he also stole from Muhammad Ali when really he was down and out. You didn't have to steal anything from Muhammad Ali; he would have given it to you. Now, get back to Zaire 1974. I talked to Muhammad Ali about I wanted to do a television special. So he had me come up to Chicago just before going to Zaire. Me and Rodney Brown got on an airplane and flew into Chicago, and his security man, Pat, picked us up and took us to the gym. Gym was packed. He was working out, standing room only. And he worked out about 30 minutes after we got there. And then he disappeared into the dressing room. And next thing I know, Rockman, his brother, was tapping me on the shoulder. Hey, Harold, come on, the champ wants to see you. So I went into the dressing room, and there he was getting a massage. And I took the chair, and we sat down, we started talking. He said, now, man, what is it that you want to do? I said, I want to do a television special, man. What did I tell you? He said, okay, well, we do it in Zaire. I said, huh? We'll do it in Zaire. You know I'm going to Zaire next week, going to fight George Foreman for the heavyweight championship. We can do it there. I said, champ, I ain't going to, I'm not flying across that water, man. I am not going to fly across that water. And so he sat right up on the massage table and started flapping his wing, calling me a chicken, cluck, 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 chick. I said, I don't care what you do. I am not flying across the ocean. So we sat and we talked. And he finally said, I tell you what, when I get back, you will get the first interview. So I said, okay, I ain't paying no attention to this guy. Muhammad Ali might say anything. So I ain't paying no attention. So we both fell asleep. He fell asleep on the massage table. I fell asleep on the couch. And that evening, as we get ready to head back to Washington, D.C., we had dinner. And Pat Patterson, his security man, took us to the airport. And I didn't tell Rodney that I had turned down a trip to go to Africa until we got on the plane and headed back to D.C. And Rodney went off. He couldn't believe that I had turned down a trip to go a heavyweight championship fight in Zaire, Africa with Muhammad Ali. And I told him, man, I didn't want to fly across that water, man. So anyway, now we back in D.C., and up comes the fight, and I decided I would go watch it closed circuit. So I called my buddy Roy Jefferson of the Washington Redskins, and he got his wife Candy and Hattie and I. We all four of us went to Constitution Hall to watch the closed circuit. And man, we were sitting up at the balcony. One of the most exciting, most historical fights that I ever seen, man. In fact, when Muhammad Ali knocked him out in the 8th round, I almost fell over. We were in the balcony. I almost fell over down to below, and Roy caught me, man. So anyway, now I'm home, lying in the bed. About 10 o'clock at night, it's raining, and I'm sleeping good, and the phone rings. So I pick up the phone. I said, who's calling? Let me speak to Harold Bell. I said, who's calling, man? He said, fool, this is the heavyweight champion of the world, Muhammad Ali. I said, straight up in the bed. I said, champ. I said, champ, what's happening, champ? He said, I'm back. He said, I'm in New York City. You still want to do that interview? I said, yeah. He said, well, come on. Come on up here in the morning. This is where I'm staying. This is a telephone number. And I'll see you in the morning. So he hung up the phone. So I'm sitting there, man. I sit there about 10 minutes, man. I don't know if I'm dreaming or what. You understand? So I finally come out of the trance that I was in. And I said, man, I ain't got no car. I ain't got no money. How the heck I'm going to get up there in New York and interview this man? So I picked up the phone and called Rodney Brown, my partner. I called Rodney. I said, Rodney, guess what? Muhammad Ali just called me, man. He said, man, but ain't no Muhammad Ali call you, fool. I said, man, he just called me. I just hung up the phone. He said, what? I said, he wants us to come up to New York to do the interview. He said, well, what's the problem? I said, well, I ain't got no money. I ain't got no car. He said, hold it, Harold. Number one, I got the car. I got Will with me. He got the credit card. And PBS got the cameras. So let's go. We're going to pick you up at midnight. And sure enough, they picked me up in Southeast Washington I was living in Greenway at the time, right off Minnesota Avenue, and we headed for New York City with PBS cameras in the in the trunk of the car. And man, we must have got to New York City about a little after 6 o'clock in the morning, and had breakfast, and then we walked to the hotel. And I found the house phone and called Muhammad Ali's room, and he picked up. And I said, champ, it's Harold Bell. He said, come on up. Seventh floor, and we got up to the seventh floor. He was standing out in front of the room, combing his hair, combing his hair. He said, didn't I tell you I was gonna knock that sucker out? Didn't I tell you I was gonna knock? And look at me, don't I still look good? And so he acted a fool, and we went into the room and did that interview. One of the greatest one-on-one interviews I've ever done. And you know what makes it so really rewarding, man, and realizing how blessed I was. He didn't call Howard Cosell. He didn't call Ed Bradley of 60 Minutes. He didn't call Brian Gumble. He calls Harold Bell, man, a little talk show host in Washington, D.C. He got 3 black journalists in his room. We interviewing the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. That had to be a first. So anyway, we get ready to leave, packing up, and he said, y'all guys ready? I said, yep. So he came over, gave me a $100 bill, said, get some gas and get something to eat, and we'll be talking later. And so I turned everything over to Rodney and Will, and they edited the film. And we went up to, I called up to the Poconos Mountains up in, training camp, and called Rockman, told me, hey, look, I think we got everything ready. We ready, let the champ see it. He said, well, Harold, come on up, boy, but you could be gambling. Guess who's up here? Lola Falana. She's up here in these red hot pants, and I think she's trying to get in the pants of Muhammad Ali. So I told Rodney was happy. Rodney said, let's ride. This is a nice day. So we went on up to the camp, and we hooked up with Rockman, and sure enough, there was Lola Falana out with them red hot pants. So Rockman took us on down to a little cabin, and Rodney set everything up. He said, well, let me see if I can get him out here, man. Just give me a minute. So it took him about an hour, and he came back with Muhammad Ali. And the champ walked in the door. He was not happy to see me. He said, Harold, what you want? I said, champ, we got the film edit. And before I could say it, Rodney had switched on the camera, and it was up on the screen. And the champ sit down, and he watched it, and he was pleased. He said, that's good, man. I like that. They said, go ahead on, do what you got to do. And we end up having that show called Spotlight on Sports. We added a couple of more segments to it. We added Roy Jefferson and Billy Kilmer in a segment. And then we went down to Laurel Racetrack. Behind the scenes, Rodney's father was the manager of the stable down there to do something on the back, the backtrack. What happens behind the backtrack. So that was part. And then we got with our man, our friend, the late Jim Vance, and Jim talked to people at WRC TV4, which was an NBC affiliate, to airing the show. And didn't air at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. It aired in prime time on a Sunday, 30 minutes before the Redskins met the Oakland Raiders. That was unheard of. I was the first black to host and produce his own television special in prime time on NBC. And but guess what? I didn't do like I did Inside Sports. I copyrighted the interview. I copyrighted. That's right. And man, it's one of the great interviews. In fact, you can go up on YouTube and just see a teaser with Robert Hooks. And this thing, 1974. Look how great that interview still looks today. And you'll never see Muhammad Ali do a one-on-one interview with a black eye, with nobody. I don't care. They're thousands of interviews all around the world with Muhammad Ali. You'll never see one with a black eye. And with that black eye, left black eye, he did the interview with me. Never do any interviews with any scratches on his face, on his pretty, pretty face. And man, I'm still today, I'm proud, to be able to talk about that, man. My up close and personal relationship with the greatest of all time. And right now, as you know, they get ready to come up with his birthday in 2018, January, Black History Month, and the first anniversary of his death in June. And they're looking around for authentic footage. They don't have any. I'm the only one that got authentic footage. You know, people paid a group out of New York in 2006 gave him $50 million for the rights to his likeness and name, plus 20% of the advertising interest. But guess what? They don't have the copyrights to my interview. And you know they're going to try to pull all kinds of tricks. So, but it ain't happening like that. So what I just recently did, because I look like I'm going to have to do it myself, I established a GoFundMe link on the internet to help me get funds to do it myself, you know, get the editing and everything, because all it's already in the can and it still looks good. So if you want to help me get the real Muhammad Ali out there, they get ready to put some fake stuff out with LeBron James doing the life and times of Muhammad Ali. What does LeBron James know about Muhammad Ali? You understand? Nothing. So they're trying to block me out, but you know what? God is good, man. He's been great. And I just want to say, you know, as I get ready to go out here, I'm going to come back next time and I want to put that interview up there, the audio interview up there, and talking about, and you're going to hear Muhammad Ali like you never heard him before. Have you ever heard Muhammad Ali do a radio promo for anybody? Saying, when I'm in Washington, D.C., I check out my main man, Harold Bell, on Inside Sports. It's a knockout. Yeah, I got Muhammad Ali to even do that. He's never done that for anybody. So yeah, I got something. I got something for you. So just remember, I'm gonna close out with this. That this has been the Legends of Inside Sports and the way we were. And remember that every black face that you see is not your brother, and every white face is not your enemy. And remember, a lie will change 1,000 times. The truth never changes. I'm Harold Bell for the Legends of Inside Sports, and you can color me gone.